Welcome back to PLS 510, Forage Management and Utilization. Today we're going to take up alfalfa. We're going to separate or break this alfalfa lesson into at least two parts. The first part is going to be the Alfalfa General information, diseases and pests. And the second part will be establishment and management. So let's get started. First, the scientific name for alfalfa is Medicago sativa. It is a perennial legume. It's taprooted with a tall and erect growth habit. It's the highest yielding, highest quality forage we grow in Kentucky. It is in high demand as hay, mainly grown with the companion grass, and that grass is oftentimes, or most often, if not 100%, orchard grass. And it's often called the highest value forage in Kentucky because of its yield, because of its quality, and because it is in high demand. Let's take a look at the characteristics. I've already said it is a taprooted species, but it has a deep and extensive taproot if the rooting soil conditions, the soil structure will allow it, which makes it more tolerant of hot and dry conditions, but it's very intolerant to wet conditions. Of the forage crops that we raise commonly, it has the highest soil fertility requirement, particularly of pH, where alfalfa would like to have a pH between 6.5 and 7. It has a high potassium requirement compared to other crops, and it has a specific inoculum, Cynorhizobium melliloti. Alfalfa is very persistent, and it has a wide range in tolerance to cold temperatures as a species. These tolerances are expressed or explained or quantified as fall dormancy ratings, where 1 is a very winter hardy variety. Alfalfa can have purple, lavender, or white blooms, such as shown in the upper left, which is the purple one, and then there are all three colors on the upper right. Alfalfa leaves have serrations on the outer 1/3 of the leaf, and you can see them clearly here. This is different from sweet clover, which has serrations on the whole leaf edge, around the whole outside of the leaf. And that is how we commonly, or how you can commonly or easily tell the difference between alfalfa and sweet clover if the plants are looking similar otherwise. Alfalfa has an adaptation, a wide adaptation. In fact, you can grow it just about, well, it says by this map, all across the United States, but it's very well adapted to, you would have to say, the north central and the northeast parts of our country, and it's Kentucky is fully within its best area of adaptation. We've shown you this graph several times before, but this really contrasts mainly the three kinds of growth habits of the legumes we see most frequently. White clover on the left, whether it's the white Dutch, the really low growing kind, or the taller ladino to the right, which has a taproot but also a stolon. And then the red clover plant, which is a very erect plant with big showy blooms, and then compared to the alfalfa plant, which has smaller leaves, smaller flowers, but also very erect. Let's talk a little bit about fall dormancy ratings and so you can get a better handle on those. Fall dormancy ratings do indicate the relative differences in the amount of fall growth between or among varieties. We have a standardized numerical scale, 1 to 11, where 1 is very dormant and 11 is non-dormant. In other words, it's not going to stop growing in the fall. The dormancy ratings that are relevant to Kentucky are 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the varieties that you would expect to do well and persist here would have one of these dormancy ratings. Fall growth is an approximate indicator of winter hardiness. And fall growth is a trade-off between winter hardiness and production. Low fall dormancy rating of 1 or 2 means high winter hardiness and lower fall yields. A high fall dormancy rating, say 8, 9, or 10, would be low winter hardiness and high fall yields. And this would show you what fall dormancy of 1 versus a fall dormancy of 9 would look like in Kentucky in the fall. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about alfalfa resistance ratings. Alfalfa as a forage crop is, well, I guess we know more about the resistance ratings of this forage crop, alfalfa, than any other forage crop that we will commonly grow. And they are based on the percent of the alfalfa susceptible to diseases and insects. Now, I'll remind you that forages almost exclusively are heterogeneous populations of gene expressions, or heterogeneous populations of gene expressions. These resistance ratings do have a standardized scale. The diseases of concern in Kentucky are mainly of the root zone, and you can take a look there. There are Phytophthora root rot, bacterial wilt, fusarium wilt, anthracnose, which is not a disease of the root zone, Aphanomyces root rot, and Sclerotinia crown and stem rot, and there's very little resistance to that last disease. The insects of concern in Kentucky are the potato leafhopper and the alfalfa weevil. I told you that these numbers are quantified, and there is a ratings system for disease ratings in alfalfa. And here's the scale: from highly resistant, resistant, moderately resistant, little resistance, and susceptible. The percent of plants resistant, more than 50 to be HR, 35 to 50 to be R, 20 to 35 to be MR, 5 to 20 to be LR, and if there's less than 5% of the plants resistant, that's considered susceptible. And in Kentucky, we say that a variety at a minimum should be moderately resistant to all of the major diseases, but that only means that 20 to 35% of the plants will be resistant to that disease. This shows you the comparison of a healthy crown and root zone split in two. This is the healthy one on the left and a more diseased one on the right. These crowns are 6 years old, which is quite old for alfalfa, but you can tell this is still intact. It's still very white. This is more attacked by fungi right up here at the top, you can tell, or bacteria, and starting to decompose internally. So you can tell that these are different. This is on the hillside location, so well drained. This is in the bottom. And remember, we said that alfalfa does not like wet soil conditions. Let's start looking at, just briefly, at the two insect species that we worry about managing for alfalfa. The alfalfa weevil, it usually only affects the first cutting, and this larvae will then skeletonize the leaves, and you will lose yield and photosynthetic capacity from the feeding action of this larvae. Potato leafhopper damage looks different. The potato leafhoppers have piercing, sucking mouth parts, and they will insert their mouth parts along the midvein and insert saliva, which then will dissolve the cell solubles here, and this saliva and the cell solution, or the attack of the saliva on the leaf itself, causes this very distinctive V-shaped yellowing with potato leafhopper. So there's a triangular yellowing from the point of injury with the leafhopper. But damages include plant stunting, and let's take a look at that. Well, here's another view, actually, of that very pronounced V-shaped yellowing, and sometimes it even has other appearances, but this is the most definitive symptom. But I said the potato leafhopper has a growth inhibitory effect. This is an area or some alfalfa that has been damaged by potato leafhopper, and this area was protected. And you can tell a little bit, but at the very marked difference in height of the no damage or the undamaged section and the leafhopper damaged section. There are IPM scouting standards established for both the alfalfa weevil and the potato leafhopper. And so it is relatively easy with a sweep net and walking through the field to establish the populations. And then based on the size and of the plants that are being fed upon, we can then know whether it's an economic threshold has been reached to treat for either the alfalfa weevil or potato leafhopper. So that brings us to the close of this subsection of alfalfa. When we meet again, we will take up alfalfa establishment and management. Thank you.